now we know what the charges are. We know some of the details, at least the allegations. The official charges against Jimmie Ward, Texan safety, assault, family violence, and impeding breathing and circulation, which is a third-degree felony. So,
which basically is interpreted as choking
somebody. So we get to the actual, in plain English, details of this. The victim is the alleged victim is Jimmie Ward's fiance, and she's alleging that Jimmie Ward assaulted, strangled, and threatened her at their home in Magnolia yesterday. So that's where we are with that right now. There was footage of Jimmie Ward leaving the jail yesterday, getting into a car. Somebody picked him up at the jail and drove off. And that's where we are right now. We're still waiting on details. We're into a dead period now, Seth, where we're not going to hear from anybody from the team for a long, long time with conventional football stuff. You know, if there were a practice today, D'Amico Ryans would probably be getting up in front of a mic and be getting hit with questions about this thing, but we're not in that part of the calendar right now.
Well, and you're also at the point where I think the organization legitimately can't say anything except that we're going to look into it, and we've got to – the league, as far as the NFL goes, the NFL generally waits for the legal process to play out. The team can do whatever they want in terms of figuring out exactly what's going on, what's the legitimacy, or what's the situation look like, and then they might make a decision sometime in the next 5 weeks without really us knowing much about it all while it's going on. Just, you can't rush to judgment. You have no idea exactly what happened. You don't want to call either side guilty or lying or anything until you just get a little bit more detail. I think given how most NFL teams would operate, if they do feel that it is legitimately a case of, you know, Jimmie Ward inflicting some kind of violence on his fiance, I'm guessing he's going to get that. In that situation, he would get cut.
Yeah.
But we have no idea at this point. I mean, most of the questions I got yesterday are the Texans going to cut him now? Like I'm sorry. I hate to go all Astros injury report on you. There's absolutely no possible way of knowing exactly how they're going to handle this. I mean, we don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's a sensitive issue. I mean, Jimmie Ward was arrested and he hadn't said anything about it yet. I don't think his lawyers. Yesterday, the story was, Seth, the report in the Chronicle was that they weren't sure if Jimmie Ward had legal representation. So we haven't even heard from a lawyer yet on this thing either with Jimmie Ward.
I didn't watch the video of him getting picked up at the courthouse. What was he? What was the car that picked him up?
It was a Mercedes. It was a black. Oh. It was a black. I think a black Mercedes. It was definitely a Mercedes. It was like a dark Mercedes picked him up, and he got into the car on the passenger side. So somebody was picking him up at the jail yesterday.
Could have been Uber Black.
Do you get in the front with an Uber Black?
I think Jimmie Ward might. He's a very chatty, personable guy.
He would. He of all the people on the Texans, he would be high up the power rankings of guys who would get into an Uber up front just to chit-chat with the driver, I would think. Yeah.
I wonder, I don't know how they decline a ride or not. Do you swipe left or right on a pickup from the jail?
I don't know. I've never been on the driver's side.
It's either a lawyer or a successful perp of some sort.
Yeah.
I might. If they're ordering Uber Black, then you're either going to get a lawyer or a guy who's done quite well for himself as a criminal.
It would say it would have their name, right? I mean, they would see that. Hey, it's Jimmy, and he's got a 4.95 Uber rating. You know,
that's true. Yeah.
What do you think Jimmie Ward's Uber rating is? I bet it's pretty high. I bet it's
pretty high, but he's not going to bite his tongue when it comes to maybe if the driver upsets him somehow.
Yeah, that's true.
You know? There's a lot of times where I'm riding in an Uber and the driver says something where I'm like, I'm just gonna let it go. I don't know, all right, I disagree with this guy's views on something, but I'm not gonna just. All right, yeah, sure.
Does that affect? Not to get too far off the Jimmie Ward path. Does that affect how you grade that driver on the 5-star scale if they said something?
Nah, I base it. No, it's hard for me to not give somebody a 5-star on Uber because those guys get knocked down hard for just any kind of a negative review.
Yeah.
It's got to be pretty extreme. It's got to be like the guy is deliberately screwing up or just so stupid and not listening to any of my instructions or something. Then I might give him a 4 or a 3. I don't think
I've ever given a 2, a 3, or a 4. My reflex is just to go 5. But I've had like 1 or 2 really bad ones. They got a 1. Yeah. So I never go in between. So let's play this out here. I mean, we're not going to hear anything from the Texans until some details come out about this. I was thinking about this yesterday. Couple thoughts. If indeed this is something that affects Jimmie Ward's status with the team, that it's a good thing they traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson this offseason.
Yeah.
It was a real lesson, Seth. When they traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I'm like, that's an interesting pickup. I mean, they didn't give up anything for him. They gave up Kenyon Green, who wasn't in your plans anyways. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson's not cheap. I mean, he makes $9 or $10 million a year. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, boy, they've got Kalen Bullock, they've got Jimmie Ward, they've got Jalen Petrie, who is what he is, but can play safety for you. That feels like you're really spending some money to strengthen a strength already for the team. But it's a real lesson. Like, you just never know what's going to happen, man. It's a good lesson in like it's sort of like a corollary of the best player available in the draft. Like when they drafted Blake Fisher last year, it was a little curious. Like, you got your 2 starting tackles, but then it turns out Blake Fisher has to play 7 games for you at the end of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's nice. I mean, it's still ideal if you have Jimmie Ward, depending on what happens and whoever knows. But I guess the one thing that from minicamp that I found exciting was the Texans being out there in dime with both Jalen Smith and Jalen Petrie on the field all together, plus 4 other defensive backs. You got 6 defensive backs on the field, all of whom have an appetite for violence.
Yeah.
Because when you're in dime, when you got 6 defensive backs on the field, your huge weakness is you tend to be very, very soft against the run. But when you've got that kind of mindset of players out there on the field, you can offset some of that. But, so you want as much depth as possible. And then with injuries, I mean, at various times in the last couple of years, you can see the moments when either, hey, because of depth issues at cornerback or in the safeties, you've had Okudah letting up a touchdown versus the Cowboys. You have 2 years ago, the Amari Cooper having 250 yards, largely because in one play you've got
D'Angelo Ross.
D'Angelo Ross taking his first snap at cornerback that season, and Jalen Petrie, a young safety, not playing the appropriate spot there. So, veteran depth especially. It's one thing to have depth and potential with your backup cornerbacks, but just having veterans who know where to be when they have to step in, you can't undersell, especially how important that can be towards the end of the season. And that would be a big blow from a football standpoint if Jimmy's not there.
If he's not there, and that's on the heels of Ronald Darby retiring a week ago. He was going to be your veteran corner after the top 2 guys, and Jimmie Ward was going to be, and still may be, your veteran safety after the top 2 guys. And there's a possibility now that both those guys could be gone depending on how things play out with this Jimmie Ward situation. So I thought about that. If my calculations are right, I think this is the first arrest of the DeMeco Ryans era, if I'm not mistaken. I can't think of another one. The most recent Googling yesterday was a running back named Darius Anderson who had the charges dropped, actually. He was arrested for theft at his girlfriend's house, and he ended up going on IR. He never played again for the Texans, but that was back in August of 2022. This is, if you're a longtime Texan fan, I'm not stating anything you don't already know. This is unfamiliar territory for the Texans to have a player in the crosshairs, especially for something like this. There's different degrees of arrests, especially for something like this. And I would say, Seth, this one in particular, if indeed all the allegations are true, that this one's got to crush DeMeco Ryans a little bit. I mean, Jimmie Ward is kind of attached at the hip with DeMeco coming in here. That was their first free agent signing of the DeMeco Ryans era. DeMeco and Jimmy, they went through the wars in San Francisco together. It's just, he's been a captain both seasons that he's been here. Like, this one in particular has to be, I would say, if it plays out poorly for Jimmie Ward, has got to hit DeMeco Ryans a little bit differently than it might other players on the team.
Yeah. The Texans, the most interesting arrests they've had, of their very few arrests, as you pointed out, they've got the lowest number of arrests in the NFL in the last couple decades. Remember in 2015? I can't remember which player it was. It was a backup, like an extreme backup on the player, but somebody was trying to extort him, and they ended up. So he didn't get arrested, but they set up a sting. They met at a Denny's or something, and ended up getting this guy on tape, basically giving himself up in an extortion plot.
I might not remember that. That would seem to be right up my alley. That's crazy.
It was the initial report was man arrested after alleged extortion plot targeted a Houston Texans.
Okay,
player.
I've got the whole list of arrests in front of me.
He was never arrested. The player was never arrested.
Oh, okay.
It was because he But this guy was arrested because he was trying to extort the player.
Oh, okay.
There's some photos of him smoking. Didn't know what he was smoking, but basically this guy had these pictures of a player doing something that might have been illicit. And the guy ended up calling Texans security, tried to sell the story to a local TV station.
Yeah.
He must have done all that. What a clown blackmailer if he actually had contacted the Texans, but then was like, hey, by the way, buddy, I'm going to extort you.
Yeah, dude, I wish I could react to this. I don't remember this at all. That's wild. It's like it's a blank spot in my brain. My favorite.
They were going to do it. The extortion was that they were threatening to show the pictures to his girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's coming back to me a little bit, but man, I must have been drunk that day. My favorite one on this list, I mean, it's a list of arrests, so I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek, but nobody got hurt except Ryan Griffin in this one, was when Ryan Griffin was arrested for punching out a window of a hotel in Nashville at the draft where the Texans were drafting multiple tight ends that year.
Yeah. It was.
That's one we can sit back and laugh about a little bit.
Supposedly it was unrelated, but man, it's hard to think that it didn't seep in there somehow.
Yeah.
Whatever state of agitation Ryan Griffin was in.
Yeah.
Whether you think, he heard the news about them drafting the tight ends and then he punches the window. It might have been that he was kind of agitated, and then when something happened, he just got tipped right over the edge.
It could be. He
was already agitated, then somebody bumped into him or told him he had to leave a bar or something, and then boom, that's what happened.
like to think that they drafted Kahale Waring, and he walked over and blasted out a window. And it turns out he was right. He should have blasted out a window. Kahale Waring sucked.